Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Law Enforcement. I am your host, Kenny Dean, and I have a special guest again tonight, Marlon. What's up, man? All the way from
Okay,
LA. What's going on, bro?
over here, man. KD enjoying this. Believe it or not, it was 80 degrees today, man. What's up with
Man,
that? We're
I don't want to hear that, bro, because it was like 40. It was like 40 here, man. I
yeah,
don't,
man. Yeah,
I don't
man.
want to
We
hear that.
enjoying this and happy to be here. Happy to help out and let's chop it up, man.
All right, I appreciate that. So we talked a little bit off air about this incident, and it was in Reform, Alabama. So there's a video circulating. It's definitely gone viral if it hasn't already. It's going to. And it's of a female officer who's stunning a man on the back of or the front of a car. And she's cussing and saying some words that, you know, gonna get her in trouble if it hasn't already. She's already gonna leave, I believe. And people, of course, people are commenting on that. That of course it's racial, it's automatic, a racial incident and everything like that. Now, I don't condone, her actions, but as I said to you, I would love to see the whole video to kind of paint that whole picture of how this even, how this thing just erupted into her tasing him at that point, and it's like, ooh, okay, you pulled a gun, you pulled a gun from his waistband. Um, everything is kind of. It almost looked like a skit to me in a way. Like if we would do when we do role playing skits or whatever, because it's like, okay, you got no backup. Where's your backup? Where's I don't hear you, no commands over the radio. Hey, I got one. Stop anything. So this was to me really poor training, it looks like. And then it was also a bad decision. She got really emotional on the actual, stop of, this gentleman. And yeah, it's bad and it looks bad. So you, who again, you did internal affairs and you did some, investigating on use of force and things. What's your take on that?
Okay, whew, man, this thing is loaded, man. While you were talking, I wrote down a couple of things. So first, we got to talk about the taser deployment. So that's a policy, right? Then you
Right,
have tactics, the one-man unit. So those are the things that stick out. So what's the policy about having a one-man unit, maybe calling a backup? Again, we don't know all the circumstances, but that definitely pops out in my mind.
okay,
Racial, like you said, racial issues. Look, why don't we concentrate and focus on the actual use of force with a suspect as opposed to, trying to pull the curtains back and see what race they actually are. To be
right,
quite honest with you,
right,
I think that, what do they call that? Excited delirium, if you will.
yeah,
It gets to a level, and again, your emotional intelligence gets to a level where I'm pretty sure if you were asked a line of questioning about the suspect, the last thing she's probably going to think about is the actual race. That's just me from experience. I don't know that, but that's also an issue. Now, the use of force policy. So of course he grabbed her and he pretty much threw him up on the hood. Is that a tactic, or is that best practices? I don't know. I don't know if they teach that, if they actually teach it in the academy, if she's actually gotten some update use of force training as it relates to, I suppose, affecting an arrest. That can also be an issue. Another thing too sticks out is body worn video. Does that agency have body worn video or not? So it'd be
right,
nice to know if they
right,
did.
right.
Well, here's the problem. If they actually did have body worn video and she didn't turn it on, well, that can be
That's
an issue.
that's another
If
one.
she didn't, if the agency does not have body worn video, then you know what? Kudos to the person who was recording,
Right.
because at least it gives us a depiction of what actually happened.
Okay.
Then we go on with drugs, right? So I'm led to believe that the suspect is under the influence. I don't know that. You might want to get a DRE, a drug recognition expert at scene, to see if they're actually under the influence. And last but not least, for the people who are listening to this or watching, look, what we call foul language, inappropriate remarks, I know some people are going to say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that the officer's talking to the suspect like that." Well, you know what? Sometimes when your emotions are just sky high, there are
Yeah,
certain things that you have to say in order to effect an arrest,
right.
prevent an escape, and apprehend the suspect. So those are the things that pop out, but we're more than welcome to break down.
So it, she was angry, right? It appears she was angry. Something happened. Well, I'm a guess. I'm gonna take it as a experienced officer. Both of us experienced. Something happened that led that to get to that point, and that's the issue I have with the videos that a lot of time that are shown. It's like, okay, was she fighting? Because her language leads me to believe there was some kind of initial confrontation that, again, I wasn't there. I'm not justifying the part that we saw, but something led her to go to a 10, like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And to got him back was his actions, you know what I mean? And again, we have to be professional. We were supposed to be robots,
yeah.
and it just looks like she lost control of her emotions, and that's what kind of caused the issue.
Yeah. So one of the things we discuss when it comes to critical incidents, especially with OISs, because that's what I'm more familiar with, is the fact that yeah, you never want to create the exigency. In other words, you never really want to create the peril, right? And
Right.
be the person that's going to get to 0 to 10. Meaning, if we see her, like you said, getting to 10 so quick, what we need to know is that who actually created,
That,
you know,
right.
those circumstances. Was
Right.
it just her
Right.
flying off the handle and not being able to effect an arrest because she's already pretty much determined that, you know what, I'm going to arrest this guy?
Yeah.
Or was it the actions of the suspect that actually led her to get to that 10 level, 10 being the
Right.
highest?
Right.
What concerns me the most, and again, look, I'm not a big fan of passing a lot of scrutiny, if you will, in a situation like this in another agency. And again,
Yeah. Exactly.
we as officers can never fill the shoes, even of our own colleagues,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
However, when it comes time to review, and I can tell you this from experience, there's just set of circumstances that you're going to have to pass judgment.
Hmm.
And that might be an IA, right? Because we're saying that, hey, there is some misconduct there. How we're going to render recommended penalty on that, that's a whole different story. But let's
Right.
first get to whether or not you violated policy and procedure, because that's huge. This,
Right.
when I see all this, what sticks out the most is the fact that there's a lot of policy. If there is, I don't
Yes.
know.
Right.
But my
Right.
thinking is policy and procedure is at issue in those things as it relates to the taser, as it relates to the body worn video, as it relates to the affecting an arrest, and the one man unit. Those are things that we're going to have to really analyze with a fine tooth comb, whether or not you should have or could have done
Yeah.
different. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
and this always and this is what always gets you in a use of force. It's not so much the what you did, because we're watching what she did,
Hmm.
right? It's the things that you didn't do or you didn't think about that we're going
Right.
to do a heavy scrutiny on
Right.
this particular incident. So
Right. So let me ask you this: you're
yes,
investigating that, right? That case comes across your desk. First thing, you said the things that you look for, whatever.
yes,
Are you making this? Are you going to make a statement? Not that you, but are you going to? Because the police chief is going to be calling. You know that they're going to be hitting you up if it's
yes,
high profile. Hey, Marlon, tell me what you think. Give me something to work with. You know how that works, right?
absolutely.
And as an investigator, are you going to tell them, or would you tell them, I'm not going to pass judgment until I get all the facts, and this is not a racial incident until it becomes, you know what I mean? Like I cannot justify the lust for vengeance from the crowd
Of
until
course.
I get all the facts. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of these type incidents, because
Yes.
it's already getting pushed. They say getting pushed to, I think, Alabama Justice Department, Criminal Justice
Uh-huh.
Department, for them to, do their investigation over the police department, and that's fine. That's cool, but it automatically went racial because she was white and he was black, and again, I have a such a distaste for that because I've
Yeah.
been in that situation.
Yeah.
Again, we discussed, just because of my name and just because of me, the media, oh,
Yeah.
he's white, and then turn,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's black, right? He just got
Yeah.
a name that sounds like a white dude. So I caution people before you go, you know, this is a racial incident. This, to me, I'm looking at this as she just violated a lot of policies in my mind.
Correct.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of policies,
Yes.
and that's probably what
Absolutely.
they done. Then that's what they buying anybody on. So does it? Are you okay? Are you firing her? Are you firing her? Are you terminating her employment as a chief?
No, look, from what I know, I'm far from the needle right now. It's not even moving towards
Right,
termination whatsoever.
right,
I mean,
right,
look,
right.
there is what we call here in California, especially my big beloved LAPD. The way I was taught was when it comes to application of force, you have to look at it from this perspective: substantial deviation from department policy and procedure without justification. So think of all those buzzwords, right? So, in other words, you can substantially deviate from department policy and procedure. And again, I just gave you a laundry list. I
Right,
told you about the
right.
taser, body worn, tactics, uh, the inappropriate remarks, the one man unit, the fact that if she had knowledge, if he had a firearm. I mean, there's just a host of issues. So the question is,
That's a good one.
you see
The
what I'm saying?
firearm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the farm and the
Yeah,
whole nine. I mean,
yeah.
you got a
Because we
one man.
keep
You take
forgetting
it.
that. We keep
Yeah, you
forgetting
got a
that.
gun,
Again,
man. You got
not
a gun.
justification, but we
Yeah,
forget that she pulled a gun out from
exactly.
the man's, and he's a
Yeah, she
felon.
created exactly. So the
He's a
question is,
felon. Yeah.
who creates the peril? Does she create it or does he create it?
Right.
So all those questions to me, look, if you're gonna in an interview, in a compelled interview, if you're gonna sit here and tell me like, look, I've substantially deviated from all these policy and procedures, right? Substantial. It's got to be deviation substantially.
Mhm.
But if you can justify it, then great. From what I'm looking at right now, I just don't see enough justification. I chuckle because again, it like you said, it looks like it's a script. It's
Mhm.
it's a little unbelievable, but there's actually police work till this very day, as you can see, that is being conducted like this. And
Yeah,
again, maybe the circumstances are completely different than what you and I know. Now,
exactly. Yeah,
let's
exactly.
let's get to that first. So let's compartmentalize this particular incident. Let's get to the tactics and what actually happened before we even start talking about whether this is a racial issue or not.
Right.
And
Right.
the only thing I have to say about the racial issue, look, it's 2024 already, man. Look, let's stop it. There's no need for it. Uh, if it was Kenny Dean or Marlon Marachi doing this, we probably wouldn't be having a podcast
We wouldn't.
discussing this issue,
We
right?
wouldn't. We
Or
wouldn't. We wouldn't.
Alabama,
We
city
wouldn't.
council or state legislatures, whoever's in charge, probably wouldn't be having a full body discussion
Yeah,
about it.
you're
So the
right.
only thing that I have to say as it relates to whether or not the suspect is actually male, black, or any other race, why don't we just stick to the fact that
First.
of of the fact of all the tactical applications that were deployed, but
Right.
more important, let's scrutinize her, man. Let's concentrate and really get the scope and be very narrow about her actions
Right.
before we even start discussing what the suspect's actions were.
Right.
And if we are
Right.
going to be discussing the substance actions, let's not pull the curtains back and say, well, he was African American, he was black. Okay, what is it that you're trying to tell us as adjudicators or as hosts of these podcasts as we're trying to analyze all this? Are you saying that perhaps if he was a male white, female white, or Latino or any other race,
that wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, if I have a gun and and you're taking it out of me, what does it really matter?
Hey,
What race I am? Does
but
that make sense?
this is society. You know that. This
Yeah.
is what we have become. And I said that before. It's
Correct.
like I got so many, and that's why I hit you up. I got so many messages about, and people, people sending me the video, and that's how I was like, oh,
Yeah.
let me look at this.
Yeah.
And not many of the officers were like, it wasn't even a racial thing to them. It was more like, God, the taser
Yeah.
deployment was what caught everybody's attention.
Oh,
Not the
absolutely.
cussing, you know what I mean? Not the cussing, because we all listen. I've cussed at many of people. I'm not saying it's completely right, but sometimes you got to say what you need to say for somebody to say, okay, man, all right, officer, whatever. And that's part of, like I said, what society or what a lot of citizens won't acknowledge out there. But sometimes we deal with some really bad people.
Right. So for the purposes of this particular incident, let's just you and I kind of draw the line, right? And we're on the side of she violated policy.
Right,
Let's
right,
just go there.
right.
So, and as it relates to the taser only. So let's get to the taser because that's what really stands out. I should say what sticks out the most with all the people that have been hitting you up. I
Right.
agree. I think the taser sticks out the most. We're going to draw the line, and you and I are going to say, you know what, she violated policy.
Mhm.
If I were to grab, I don't know what agency this is, but if I were to read and analyze their use of force policy as it relates to a taser deployment, it's not going to fly.
Right,
It's not going to fly. So I'm already in the camp that you violated policy. Okay,
right, right,
that's chalk it up for violation. Now the question is, can you justify the deviation? Because look to me like that's not what we're supposed to be doing when you deploy a taser.
right.
You
Well,
know,
she
and
looked like she did a dry stun, right?
she did a dry stun, but there's policies, and again, for the purposes of not talking so much about a taser policy in your show, is there is, for example, there is a range, right? I think it's
Mhm.
15 to 30. There is the stun, and more important, and believe it or not, a lot of big agencies actually have a very uh, with specificity as to why you would deploy the taser and the exceptions that are accepted for you to deploy.
Right,
Maybe so in other words, it's non-lethal, right? It's part of de-escalation. If especially if she knew that he had a gun. Apparently she did because she took it out of his waistband.
she took it
At
out
least
his
that's the way I
waistband.
see it.
Right, right,
Exactly. So
right.
if she knows he's an armed suspect and she's tasing him, again, it looks like it's a violation of policy and procedure. I don't know, and I want to make very, very clear that I don't know what their policy is as it
Yes.
relates to the taser deployment. However, now I got to put my defense hat on. If she actually deployed it to get compliance, right, and stun her because he had a firearm that at any moment he can take it out and shoot her and cause her great bodily harm or great bodily injury or even death, that sounds like a little bit of justification to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what are you and I going to do? We're going to falter. Well, you first took the gun out and then you tased
And
him.
then you take
Okay,
right.
are we going to be very meticulous and say, well, how come you didn't tase him first and then take out the gun? Well, I don't know. I don't think that makes sense. And again, we have to do this full examination and this analysis as to why she deployed the taser. And it could be that uh, there's actually justification why
For
she deviated substantially because it is substantially the way I see it.
mhm.
Right? He's got her leaned up against the car, and next you know, tases him, and he starts crying.
Yeah.
He gets hey, he's
Yeah.
complying.
Yeah.
The way I see it, he was complying.
Yeah.
He
And
could have easily
listen,
turned. He could have easily turned around and just
just
started
swung
just
and yeah, I noticed
go
that.
toe to toe and go blows, and here we go.
Yeah.
So, for the purposes of what we just saw, and again, we don't have all the evidence to examine or to analyze. From that perspective, to me, there is some mitigating circumstances as to why she would deviate from department policy as it relates to the taser deployment.
Okay. Hey, Marlon, bro. That's why I love your expertise on these things, because you take my thinking out the box, and I appreciate it. Because again, I'm thinking like a police officer. We all are, but it's like
Yeah.
when you first thing you got to remember, you like policy, policy, policy. You're right, and that's what is either going to save her or get her completely hand up, which is policy. So they call her for a head. You already know that she needs to be fired. I get it. We've been there and done that, but I think this is one of those cases where you really need to hear and get the whole picture before
Yes.
you start throwing it out there as racist, this, or she was just, racist because she's out of, she acted out.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
That's
Look,
fine.
I think that what we should do, for the purposes of not just being, hey, don't kill the messenger. We're like being the messengers here and giving some opinion, which is
Right.
fine. We can do that, but perhaps maybe in the future, if you and I, or if you can, or anyone that's listening, or send us, perhaps the follow up articles or any research that we can do as it relates to their policies in that particular agency, and go from there and see what happens. Maybe we can do a follow up um,
Yeah, that's a good
uh,
idea. We will.
podcast show.
Okay.
Just so we don't leave the crowd, the audience, hanging from just what I believe to be violation of
Right.
policy, what you believe to be the same thing as, we're on the same uh, waves, same lines of communication, in terms of what we think it is. But
Okay.
then again, we can't forget that she is in a situation where she did it for a specific reason. And at this time, we don't know what those reasons are.
Okay. Good enough, man. Marlon, listen, bro. Again, I appreciate having you on all the way from LA. I'll be out there soon. We're gonna work on that because I'm gonna come on that show, man. I do. Again,
Let,
I love the show. Thanks for supporting. And like I say, it's important that we get this message out that the media doesn't. That it's always two sides or sometimes three sides to a story before you
Absolutely.
condemning people. So yeah,
Yeah. And
man, I'm gonna have you back on. We're gonna do a follow up, man, and I appreciate you giving me your time tonight. And folks, thank
anytime, brother.
you.
You know what?
Appreciate it.
Happy holidays and all that. Look, let's just kind of stay away from, the racial tensions that people believe it to be, and let's just kind of hone in on the officer's actions, on the suspect actions, and we'll do a follow up, and we'll go from there, man. We'll go from there.
All right, man. Appreciate you. And folks, thanks for tuning in and thanks for supporting the podcast. Have a good night.